Our next witness defeated all the odds to become one of the greatest tennis champions the world has ever seen. Please welcome Althea Gibson.
Welcome, Miss Gibson. You were the first African American to cross the color line in 2 sports, but we'll focus on tennis first. How did you find tennis?
Well, I was born on a cotton farm in South Carolina, August 25th, 1927. But I doubt I'd have found tennis there if we had stayed. I discovered tennis on the streets of Harlem, where I grew up. Our street was closed off by the Police Athletic League, and they set up a paddle tennis court right in front of my parents' stoop on West 143rd. Oh, I was good at sports. My daddy wanted a son, so he treated me as one. We'd go to the rooftops and box, no holding back. So I was never confined by gender stereotypes, but I was confined by access to the tennis courts. Tennis was a privileged sport, a rich sport, a white sport. The ones playing were the ones who had access to the tennis clubs. So I found my way around that by sneaking onto the courts at night. There was little light, so I couldn't even see the lines. I could only feel the lines. I think that's one reason I got so good. One of the paddle coach tennis volunteers brought me to the Cosmopolitan Tennis Club. It was a private club for the black bourgeoisie. Whew. That was a different world. I was unprepared for the genteel confines of tennis. I was a wild child. I liked to stay out all night, not come home till morning. I just wanted to play, play, play. I dropped out of school in the 8th grade. And here I am in this world of money, education, and high class. I started playing American Tennis Association championships. That's a tennis organization for black players. And they didn't know what to do with me. Hecklers would set me off and I'd take off into the stands and lay them out. I tell you. Well, one day I caught the eyes of Dr. Hubert Eden and Robert Johnson. And Dr. Johnson comes up to me and says, "How'd you like to play Forest Hills one day?" I said, "Don't kid me. Forest Hills? That's where the U.S. National Championship was held. Now the U.S. Open, that was whites only. But the doctors were determined to cross the tennis color line. So they took me in as sponsors. My whole world was tennis training, tennis tournaments, and etiquette training. Oh, they had to teach me how to lose graciously. It was something. Oh, there was a lot of discipline involved. They had to teach us and prepare us for a world that didn't want us. Those 2 men put a lot of work into my success on and off the court. I won 9 ATA tournaments my first summer with them. And they pushed me to finish high school. I finally graduated when I was 22.
On August 28th, 1950, you finally got to Forest Hills, becoming the first African American to play in the National Tennis Championships. What happened?
I beat Barbara Knapp on the first day, and on the second I was faced with Louise Brough. She had just won Wimbledon and was defending champion. The crowd, the stands were full of hecklers, yelling at Brough to beat to defeat me. I lost the first set, 6-1, but I came back in the second set. I won the second set, 6-3. At the start of the third set, I slipped again. I was losing 3-0. A coach of mine said, One of my greatest weaknesses was that I was self-defeatist. Too much in my own head. Gave up once I started to lose. But I came back that day. I tuned it all out, and just as the storm clouds were moving in, I moved in to take the lead. Whew! I came back with a vengeance. The crowd, over 2,000 people who had just been screaming for my demise, were suddenly yelling for my victory. I was up 7-6, and broth was used up. It started pouring. I was still going. Rain never stopped me from playing paddleboard back home. Rain falling, thunder rolling, and then crack! Lightning shot down and struck the giant stone eagle perched on top of the stadium. Whew, it cracked and crashed down. One reporter said it was because God was mad. No, that was an omen that times were changing. Well, the eagle had fallen, but my time would have to wait. They'd suspended the match due to rain. We were to pick up again tomorrow. Well, it seems like I hadn't quite defeated my demons. The next day, after losing momentum in a night's sleep to anger and self-doubt, and then being faced with hordes of reporters and photographers, I let it get to me. I lost the match.
But there is a long list of wins that came after.
Well, they didn't happen overnight. A lot of setbacks and hard work. I almost quit. But in 1956, I won 16 of 18 tournaments I played. And then I was the first Black player to play Wimbledon, competing in a doubles tournament with Angela Buxton. I was Black, she was Jewish. No one wanted to pair with either one of us, so we found each other and won Wimbledon. And in 1957, I won Wimbledon on my own. I will never forget taking that trophy from the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth. Shaking hands with her was a long way from being forced to sit in the colored section of the bus going into downtown Wilmington, North Carolina. And yet the sweetest victory was the next one. Oh, Forest Hills, the US Open, 7 years after my debut. Me against Broth once again, but this time it was mine. I won, no sweat, and I did it again the next year, as well as Wimbledon.
You were the first Black player to be ranked #1 in the world. That must have felt unbelievable.
Yes, I finally made it to the top, but you can't eat a crown. There was no money in tennis. Now sports stars are billionaires. Then any money you earn just got you to the next tournament. I wasn't making enough to survive. I had to quit tennis.
After leaving tennis, Miss Gibson used her wealth of disparate talents to support herself. She wrote an autobiography, recorded a record. Her singing voice is as powerful as her arm. And then, in 1960, she found golf. By 1964, she was the first African-American member of the Ladies Professional Golf Association.
Yes, Michael Jordan, well before Michael Jordan. I never won any tournaments, though. My golf career didn't last long, and it didn't bring in any money. I then entered a rather dark time in my life. I became reclusive, depressed. The world forgot about me. Medical bills were out of control. I couldn't afford rent. One day I decided I didn't want to go on anymore because I lost all joy. I called my old doubles partner, Angela Buxton, my dear friend, and I said, Angie, baby, things aren't too good over here. I've got nothing left. I have no money. It's about time I ended things. I just wanted to call and say goodbye. And she said, hang on, Althea, no. How much do you need? I said, I'm about $1,500 behind in rent and other bills. She said, it's in the mail, and I'll figure out how to get you out of this. Well, about 6 months later, I was on my way to the post office one day to get my mail. And they couldn't even open the darn box. It was so stuffed full of letters. They said there was more like that in the back. I said, what on earth? I opened one of the letters, and there was a card in there with someone saying how much I meant to them, how they loved watching me play, and I inspired them. And a $20 bill fell out. I called my friend Angie and I said, Angie, baby, did you do this? She said, do what? She finally came clean though. She had written a letter to Tennis Week magazine, reminding readers who I was and my contribution to tennis, saying if I ever meant anything to them, I was in need of financial assistance. And it was time to pay up, baby. Oh, there ended up being over $1 million. The money helped, but sometimes feeling appreciated and the joy that comes with that is what one really needs to keep going.
Althea Gibson died September 28, 2003, at the age of 76. Angela Buxton wrote in her letter to Tennis Week, Althea Gibson titled her poignant autobiography, I Always Wanted to Be Somebody. She was and is a somebody very special.
Though their stories seem disparate, Miss Gibson and Miss West demonstrate the importance of women being paid their worth and the consequences when they are not. When I was offered a teaching contract at Rutgers in the fall of 1963 at the age of 30, my salary was considerably lower than my male counterparts. When I confronted the dean about this, he said, I can't pay you as much because your husband earns a high salary. I kept my head down and my mouth shut. There was no further discussion. But in 1970, inspired by the influx of brilliant, radical women filling my classrooms, I decided to finally put my foot down for myself and the women working beside me. My fellow Rutgers professors and I filed a federal class action lawsuit against Rutgers for pay discrimination. We won. I cannot say the same for Lilly Ledbetter.
One evening, Lilly Ledbetter opened her mailbox to discover an anonymous letter. It held a torn piece of paper which listed all the manager's salaries at the Goodyear tire plant. She discovered she made $15,000 less than the men in her same position. She sued for pay discrimination, and in 2007, the lawsuit made its way to the Supreme Court. Ledbetter lost, 5-4. Samuel Alito gave the majority opinion, stating that although Ledbetter may have indeed been discriminated against, her case was beyond the statute of limitations, and she should have filed a charge within 180 days after each discriminatory employment decision was made and communicated to her.
I dissent. Pay disparity often occurs, as it did in Ledbetter's case, in small increments. Cause to suspect that discrimination is at work develops only over time. Today's decision counsels sue early on when it is uncertain that discrimination accounts for the pay disparity you are beginning to experience. Indeed, initially you may not know that men are receiving more for substantially similar work. Of course, you are likely to lose such a less than fully baked case. If you sue only when the pay disparity becomes large enough and steady enough to enable you to mount a winnable case, you will be cut off at the court's threshold for suing too late. I then called on Congress to take action where the court had failed.
It worked. On January 29, 2009, President Barack Obama signed into law the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009. It amends Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, specifically stating that the 180-day statute of limitations for pay disparity resets with each and every paycheck. What happened to Lilly Ledbetter couldn't happen again.
And now, America's first prima ballerina, Maria Tallchief.
Position 1, in which I am born of two worlds. January 24th, 1925, on the Osage Reservation in Fairfax, Oklahoma. My daddy is an Indian Tallchief, Kihe Ka Tatsa. My mother, Scots-Irish, Porter. When I am little, Daddy and Grandma Tallchief take me and my sister Marjorie to a powwow. I remember the clothing, hides, headdresses, beads, blankets, silver jewelry, moccasins. We sit in a semicircle amongst pipe smoke, but mostly I remember the dancing. The men dance to a tom-tom beat, a sidestep and stomp centered in a circle. There is rhythm in everything. The drums, the songs, the fables, the dancing. The rhythm of those songs stay with me forever. Second position, in which I find my second soul. When I am 3, Mom takes me to my first ballet lesson. She doesn't know whether I'll be a concert pianist or a dancer. I am good at both. In 1933, Mother throws everything behind me and my sister's talents. We pack up Daddy's maroon Pierce Arrow and we set off for Los Angeles. My new instructor says I was put on point too early. I have to start over, back to the beginning. A new town, new state, new instructor, new dance, new school, new classmates. They shout war whoops at me in the halls, ask me where my feathers are, call me a redskin. They don't understand my name. Tallchief is 2 words. They call me Maria Chief or Maria Tall. They can't understand that someone can be 2 things at once. I turned Tallchief to 1 word. When I turned 12, I started taking lessons from Madame Nijinska. She is strict and rigorous, and she makes me want to be a ballerina. She teaches me how to breathe, how to really breathe. My breath is for ballet. She teaches me that my dancer's soul is in the center of my body, and my body and soul are for ballet. Third position, in which I begin. I am 17 and alone for the first time in my life. Alone in New York City. I am scared and excited and sad and nervous and overjoyed, and a member of the Ballet Russe. They say you should change your name to Tallchieva to sound more European, but I refuse to change who I am. We travel by train and sleep sitting up. We squeeze 4 of us into a hotel room. We sleep on sofas, on tables, on floors. I lose 15 pounds living off 25-cent plates of spaghetti. New town, new stage, warm up, makeup, dance. New town, new stage, warm up, makeup, dance. My body aches and I am always sick and cold and tired, but I love every moment. We performed the Chopin Concerto, choreographed by Madame Nijinska. It holds a special place in my heart. I played it on the piano at home. One day the lead, Natalie Krasovska, storms out. The head of the Ballet Russe says I must go on opening night in New York City. The others say I am not ready, that I'll make a fool of myself. But I have been practicing every day. I have been waiting for this moment. The dance is hard, but my concentration's stern. And I know that music. I played it with my fingers on the keyboards, and now I must dance it on the floorboards. And I am a triumph. The New York Times says Miss Tawchief is the real discovery. And when she grows up, so to speak, she can hardly escape being somebody. Fourth position, in which I transform. In 1944, my life changes forever. I meet George Balanchine, the greatest choreographer who ever lived. You know, Maria dear, if only you would learn to do battement tendu properly, you wouldn't have to learn anything else. Start over, back to basics, again. Slide front and close, derriere, close fifth, side cross behind, side cross in front, switch to the back. My technique gets stronger. The attention to details pushes my performance beyond my imagination. Battement frappe, fifth position, strike, close, strike, flex, stretching in. I go through a metamorphosis. My body does astonishing things, and I realize mastery is a journey, not a destination. I become George's prima ballerina, on stage and at home. We get married. It's as if I marry ballet itself. George starts Ballet Society, with me as his muse and he as mine. The four temperaments, Orpheus, Swan Lake, Don Quixote, practice, drill, repetition, practice, pas de cheval, in and out and close, in and out and close. For 5 years, George and I spent 14 hours a day rehearsing and performing, and then Stravinsky's Firebird, the hardest performance of my career. I get sick, I look frail, I can't eat, I can barely swallow. Days before opening night, I go to the hospital. It is tonsillitis. They perform surgery, and I lie in bed for 2 days, unable to sleep because I fear the Firebird. Its premiere is on November 27th, 1949, and so is its final dress rehearsal. I arrive at dawn, days after my tonsillectomy. I am sore, weak, and tired. We haven't even performed it with an orchestra yet, nor seen the costumes. My feathered headpiece, top heavy and awkward, arrives 10 minutes before curtain, but there is nothing left to do. Something is always going to go wrong. It's never going to be perfect. You just have to learn to move on. Standing in the wings as the orchestra begins, I stop thinking. Just dance. There is a moment in Firebird where I leap across the stage into the prince's arms. The movement is magic. One moment I'm on one side of the stage, the next I'm in my partner's arms on the other side. The audience gasps. I have flown and they can't see how. The curtain falls. There is a hush and we stand in the dark in shock. It's over and we haven't even staged the curtain call. The curtain rises and I'll never forget the sound. The audience roars louder than a football game. The curtain falls and rises 9 times and they keep shouting my name. Tawchief, Tawchief, Tawchief. Fifth position, in which I don't have to choose. At 26, I realize I want a child. George has no desire for a child. His child is ballet. You are worth more to me as a ballerina than a mother, Maria. Ballerinas rarely have babies. The physical demands, the touring, the commitment. You have to choose, baby or ballet. But I want both. George and I part. But I am still his prima ballerina on stage, and he creates for me one of the greatest roles. the sugar plum fairy in the Nutcracker. And then I meet Buzz. In 1958, we have a baby girl. The day I returned from the hospital, I put on my toe shoes. I wore them around the house. I exercise on the bar as the baby naps. One day, I fall asleep on the sofa with my toe shoes on. My father sees me sleeping in the nursery with my toe shoes and he says, "Maria, you ought to be content. You have a husband, a child. Perhaps it's time to put those toe shoes up for good." I could never. I must dance. I am only just beginning. I tour Europe. I am the first American to perform at Bolshoi Theater in Moscow. I perform for Premier Khrushchev. But touring leaves me homesick. I want to dance while standing still. In 1974, I decide to teach. I open a school. Like Madame Nadinska, I spend the rest of my life helping young dancers find their second soul. Batmantandu, in which I am born of two worlds. In 1953, I was inducted into the Osage tribe by the Tribal Council. They gave me the title Princess Watetomba, Princess Woman of Two Standards, because I arabesque along the Oklahoma Plain.